Welcome, everybody. In case you've wandered in and you're not sure, this is Cherry Hill Seminary, and we're having an informal question and answer session tonight with two of our esteemed professors. And then we'll give you a chance to ask some questions and interact. I would ask you if you'll keep yourself muted for the time being. And if you have specific questions, you might put them in the chat. And as the moderator, I'll do my best to watch for those. But meanwhile, I want to introduce to you Dr. Jeffrey Kiefer, who's an ordained minister of the Wild in Ecospirituality, and Reverend Amy Beltane, who is an ordained Unitarian Universalist minister. And I've asked each of them, starting with Reverend Amy, to talk to us about your program and share a little bit for people who are new.
So lovely to be here. Lovely to see all of your faces and welcome. The spiritual direction certification program is for folks who have found themselves being the person to talk to or talk with about spiritual things in their friend group, in their family group, at work, and want to level up. So maybe you have a ministry of tattoo or massage or house cleaning or um, being a college professor, or you are a leader in your pagan group, but you want to level up in terms of being able to be present with other folks. So it's a 2-year program. It's fully online, spiritual direction training, certification at the end. It has a multi-spiritual approach, which of course any Cherry Hill program will, because paganisms is not one thing, it's many things. And we bring wisdom from many, many faith traditions. But it's not sort of pan-spiritual where we're all the same. We're celebrating the difference and the beauty and glory of what is unique about each person's spirituality. It's built on contemplative practice, ethical foundations, deep listening skills. And one of the students told me that the progression, the pedagogical progression through those 2 years is to shift you from being, the rubber ducky on the wall who's there to kind of watch what you're doing so that you feel like whatever you're doing, there is a witness. You progress from being the rubber ducky to being the golden retriever with that loving regard, to being a member of community, accountable community, to being a spiritual friend, to being a potential professional spiritual companion to folks. So that's kind of the flow through those 2 years. It's not an academic program in terms of papers and tests. It's a formation program in terms of transforming your heart and developing real life skills. I should probably define spiritual direction. And then I will turn it over to Jeffrey. We'll kind of ping pong and invite questions as we go. So spiritual direction is that's the English term that people have been using, came from Catholicism. There's a term for the same kind of work in Mohawk. There's a term for the same kind of work in Hindi, in Hebrew. This work exists all around the world, but spiritual direction is the sort of the standard English term. Personally, I like sacred tending. We're tending to the sacred together. We're tending to your sacred. Um, and so spiritual companioning is when the companion comes alongside the explorer in your interior spiritual landscape, holding a torch or a flashlight, and says, I've got your back. Where would you like to explore? Or another way to describe spiritual tending would be couples counseling for you and your divine or divines so that you can flourish together. Or maybe the third way to talk about it is that it's creating a safer space for folks to check out that closet full of amazing spiritual practices and spiritual traditions and gifts and try things on and discover what fits for them. So what's important here is spiritual direction has nothing to do with anyone directing anyone. It may have something to do with you finding your own direction. Um, it's about deep listening, witnessing, loving regard, and we trust in your wholeness. It's sort of the foundation, ethical foundation. We trust in your wholeness. Um,
Can you give us an idea of what a spiritual direction session might look like?
well, it can look a whole lot of ways. The way I practice is I'm always on Zoom because I'm in Portugal and my English speaking folks are all over the world. So we meet one on one or with a group like we are here today with me. We may talk, we may do a spiritual practice, we may do yoga together, we may draw together, we may look at a beautiful image together, and then we go spelunking into that spiritual space. What arises for you? What um, are you wrestling with? What curiosities do you want to explore? What's sparkly that you want to expand on so that you can come away feeling more alive, more resourced? Some people incorporate spiritual direction work into their Reiki practice. Some folks incorporate spiritual direction work into the LGBTQ support group at the local center. So it could look lots of ways, but that's sort of a couple of examples.
Okay. So, do you talk with each other? Does the seeker um, come with questions that you explore together? Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, some folks have a particular thing they want to handle. Um, I'm trying to discern if I need to end my relationship. I'm trying to discern if I want to take this job. I need it to be aligned with my values and my purpose in my life. Gosh, what are my values and my purpose in my life?
Mm-hmm.
I want to go to a spiritual companion and figure those things out. And that's what will feed into my discernment process. Other
Okay.
folks may be coming out of a controlling or authoritarian or just a bad fit spiritual tradition. And they're coming to a spiritual companion because they want to explore what fits. Am I pagan? Am I UU? Am I Buddhist? Are there pieces of these things? Who am I in all of this? What is my relationship? Is it divine or divines? Am I talking to the tree or, you know, those kinds of conversations, those kinds of questions are what we can explore with a
Mhm.
spiritual companion because it's a safer space to do that. You know, they say that the dinner table, no politics, but also often it's no religion. There are a lot of
Yeah.
places where it doesn't feel safe to talk about questioning your faith, exploring your faith, figuring out your faith, and this is a safer place to do that.
Okay. So, how is spiritual direction different from, say, pastoral counseling?
A pastoral, okay, there's pastoral care, which would be a minister in a or religious leader in a spiritual tradition.
Mhm.
So you have a spiritual tradition, you have a community, and you're going to that religious leader, and they will meet with you. They do, premarital counseling. They do, 3 or 4 appointments while you're wrestling with your relationship to that faith tradition. Um, but that person will not sit with you. At least that's what I was taught in divinity school. You don't sit with your parishioners. You can't. A minister has 100, 200 folks who they're working with. They can't spend an hour a month with everyone. If you want to be spending an hour a month with someone, you need to find someone who will take you on the long haul
Mhm.
and will also be willing to talk outside your spiritual tradition. So that's why you would find that. A pastoral counselor is someone who has a therapy degree. They have a psychology degree. And that person is bringing spirituality into their therapy. And so that would be similar to going to a therapist.
Okay, good. That helps a lot. Somebody asked, how often do you meet? Is there a set schedule?
Typically once a month. Some I actually find a lot of folks want to do more frequently at first until we kind of get our footing and get our hands around what it is we're doing together, and then shift to once a month. Some folks feel like they just need kind of a checkup
Mm.
periodically, get right with my principles and my divine. So that might be every couple months, quarterly, or even I have one person who comes yearly, just kind of to get reoriented when they need
Mhm.
to.
Okay. I'm curious about what made you decide to pursue this yourself professionally.
Hmm. Um, I thought that I was headed toward Unitarian Universalist ministry in a congregation. I actually had this vision of being an itinerant minister,
Mm.
traveling up and down to the smaller congregations. But one of the requirements as you move toward parish ministry is that you spend time in a hospital setting or some other setting where you are a chaplain.
Yeah.
I fell in love with that intimate, vulnerable encounter with what matters most with individual people. Very different than all the administrative skills that a minister in a congregation needs to be doing. I still love to preach, but it just brings me so much joy to be with someone. But in a hospital, for the most part, except for on the certain departments, it was 1 or 2 visits at most with a person. I didn't get to be a part of their story. I didn't get to watch their ahas unfold into meaningful traction in their lives. With spiritual direction work, I get to be with you while you move through whatever you're wrestling with and through the life milestones. Some people come for 3 appointments and they figured there's whatever it is out and they feel good about that. And we leave our appointment structure and wish each other well. And they're always welcome to come back. But some people have been with me for 10 years and that is delightful to be able to
Mm.
witness that.
Nice. Yeah. You used the word professional earlier, and this is something that I like to be able to clarify with people. Can you talk a little bit about how you prepare people for the possibility of professional practice?
Yeah, as I was saying, many people have a profession or they are solopreneurs doing Reiki or doing some other hair cutting and want to add this in to expand the kind of service they're providing. Um, but there's a lot of folks who don't have any idea what being a solopreneur looks like. So this program does spend in year 4 time helping you get the basics so that we all need food and shelter. And if this is your vocation, if this is what your profession is going to be, then you need the practical ability to make that happen. And because this is spiritual direction work, I truly believe that marketing, figuring out pricing, figuring out messaging is spiritual practice. So it is part of the coursework, and it is part of our spiritual goals, our spiritual principles, our spiritual foundation.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. And you said year four, but I think what you meant was year
Oh,
two,
sorry,
the fourth
semester 4.
section. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, semester 4.
Didn't want to scare anybody off.
Yeah, right. 2 years, just 2.
Yeah, okay. Okay, great. Let's switch over to Jeffrey for a few minutes. And let me put you in the spotlight, Jeffrey.
And I think that if it's okay, I'll do just a very quick introduction, Holly, and then I would like to share a couple slides, if that's okay.
Okay.
So, and for anybody out there considering spiritual direction, Amy is fantastic. I did the spiritual direction certificate with Amy for 2 years. It was well worth doing, and I use what I learned and the experiences really ever since then. So it's fantastic if you're considering it. So, right.
Okay.
Um, so, welcome everybody. Nice to, I can't see most of you, but anyway, nice that you're here. Thank you for so much for coming and showing some interest in either spiritual direction or eco-spirituality, or quite honestly, both, really. So my name is Jeffrey Kiefer. I'm a university professor at New York University. I teach research methodology, so I'm a methodologist. On top of that, I'm also a chaplain at New York University, working with pagan and nature-based spiritualities. I'm also an educational consultant. I do a lot of work in that regard. And I recently came off of a multi-year project in eco ministry and eco spirituality, which has really led to some of what I'm going to be talking about here with this new certificate that we are offering here at Cherry Hill. Let's see if I can do the sharing. There, I think it's working. Great. So this is just very short, but this is just to help me to frame some of this. We've titled this certificate Rewilding the Soul. It's an eco-spirituality certificate. It's year long. And by year long, we mean it is a year long. It starts in March. It ends that next February. So it is a year-long earth-based spiritual practice. It's rooted in direct relationship with the living world, the living beings, the waters, the more than human beings. And in that, just to get a sense of this is the course description, which we have. And I have it up here only because I don't want to miss any of the pieces that's I'm talking about it. But this is the slide with all the text on it. Okay, so don't worry, we don't have a whole teaching here. So this guides participants in rediscovering, or perhaps discovering for the first time, the sacred connection with the living earth, and developing an earth-based spirituality and earth-based spiritual practices that transform both personal life and community engagement. And in this, one of the tenets, if you will, of eco-spirituality, which is this kinship with the living world, is that we don't have us here and living world out there. We are part of the living world. We are always connected with the natural world. So in that sense, we don't necessarily have a dichotomy of we have nature and all of that stuff over there, and we have us over here. Part of eco-spirituality is all about trying to notice some of those places where there is that connection, but because of cultural forces, industrial capitalism, perhaps certain kinds of religious perspectives, there's been the perception that things are separated. And eco-spirituality is really focused on connecting those from a spiritual perspective. It's not, this is one of those situations where we have a spirituality and religion, and while they certainly could be connected, they don't necessarily need to be. So from that perspective, this certificate program does not have religious practice with it whatsoever. So if you're pagan, great, you're welcome. If you're Christian, great, you're welcome. If you're whatever, great, you're welcome. Spiritual but not religious, that's fine too. Because all of us are part of the natural world, and all of us can have the opportunity to reconnect or connect for the first time, or really explore that experience of what that means to be connected with the natural world. Now, we're starting on March 18th. The course meets on Wednesdays. We end on Wednesday, February 3rd, a year later. So it's 48 weeks, the entire program. It meets at Wednesdays, 9 o'clock in the morning Pacific time, 12 o'clock noon Eastern time, and 6 o'clock Central European time. In other words, we are trying to be as flexible as possible from time zones, which is very difficult because if you're in other time zones, it still wouldn't fit. But this was just what we were really looking at. The course sessions are 90 minutes. Each one will be recorded. However, this is a live program. In other words, this is not a program to take asynchronously because it's primarily experiential. So we'll talk about the experiences. We'll have prompts. We meet on one Wednesday. The following Wednesday, small groups will then meet on their own and really process through that in a smaller, perhaps a more intimate setting, for us to then continue that over the 4 modules that we have in the program. And the very last thing that I want to have here, and I could share these slides certainly, I've been writing a lot about this program and Ecospirituality itself on Substack. So if you wanted to just read a little bit more about this, I've written extensively about this and plan to continue doing that throughout the program. So there's just a little bit of an overview, and then I'll see what Holly asks. Thank you very much.
Hey, let's see. I see a question in here. Can you talk about the practicum components and what is required to receive the certification?
I think that's kind of almost for both of us in a way, right?
It looks like it may be. Kimberly, perhaps you can, yes, she says yes, it's to both of you. So I'm going to put you side by side now. I think I can do that. Add a spotlight. There you go. Okay. So
Ooh.
have at it.
Okay, so 2-year program. First year, we are working as a cohort. We are meeting in person twice a month on Zoom. We are meeting in small groups as Jeffrey, similar scenario, Jeffrey said, to kind of process and connect more deeply with the material. And we have buddies, so that you have a study buddy, a what is it called? Co-working, so that you can be supported in doing the work for the program. And during that first year, you also will be interviewing spiritual companions. So you have many more people to learn from than just me or the materials. Year 2 is so actually, I should say, during year 1, your practicum happens in your small groups. Your practicum happens in the classroom. We're doing case studies. We're doing practice. Year 2, the practicum is 3 pro bono explorers that you will be working with. People who you do not know, who your cohort members have found for you. And you'll be meeting with them in spiritual companioning once a month for each of those folks. There was a part 2 to that question, or did I cover it?
I think that's it. The
Okay.
practicum components and what's required to receive the certification. Yeah.
Oh, to receive the certification, we do have, you have to do your utmost to attend all the courses. You have to complete all the assignments, which are mostly self-reflections, which are amply responded to. So it is a dialogue throughout the course. You need to see a supervisor while you are seeing your pro bono seekers. And you have recorded sessions at the very end so that we can actually see you in action. And you have interviews, sort of check-ins every semester, so that you will never feel like you don't know where you are. And you will know how you are moving through the program. And if there's no red flags at the end, certification.
Great, thank you. Jeffrey, I think your practicum is going to involve some dirt and rocks and uh, fresh
Yeah,
air.
yeah,
Am I right?
yeah, exactly. There's a lot of what we refer to as wandering. So we'll be regularly invited out to wander. And how far that is, that's up to you. Whether it's on a hiking path up the street, whether it's in your backyard, whether it's in the local park, whether you have mobility issues, so it's just you by the window and a flower in a pot. Right? That wandering will be that place where we go to be invited into really stopping at whatever really kind of like pokes us, whatever wherever we feel called, where we have the experience of something is somehow reaching out to us. So I'll give you an example. One of my colleagues shared the story when she was recently in Spain walking on part of the Camino. And she was always behind the other group that she was with. She was always behind them because she was taking photos of flowers along the way. Now, a flower is a flower, right? How many flowers you see, they start to all look the same, but somehow she found herself constantly looking at this one because the shadow was just a little different, or this one because it seemed to be struggling against the concrete where it was growing up, or this one because, wow, there's a bee on it. Now, when she noticed those, there was something that attracted her to those flowers there and not the one across the street. There was something that almost stopped her in her tracks to communicate with her. That is what we'll be inviting people to do in the wander. Whether you are wandering on the beach, whether you are walking and there's a tree that strikes you, perhaps it is, why is there this certain bird that almost seems to be following me around? What's going on here? What is the bird trying to communicate to me? Right? Because I'm part of nature, bird's part of nature. What is this communication like? That way, when we wander, it often connects us to journaling because we need to then try to process this. And because often we don't have the wherewithal to process this on ourselves because this is not something that most people don't traditionally just naturally do something like this. We have small groups. And then we have the larger group, which is the course group that meets every other week, where we then talk about these. We talk about what are some of the challenges or what did you notice? What, if anything, did you get a new idea about? And let's see if we could dig a little bit deeper into that. So the program deals with a lot of those sorts of things. Now, we do frame it in the literature. We do have a couple of required readings and books. We do talk about writing this up. And then because eco-spirituality is often so individually focused, because we need to focus on ourselves, it's my relationship with this tree, my relationship with what's going on in the branches, and I see the moon. I mean, I need to process this on my own. However, we also know that globally, we're in an environmental crisis. And now that I have this deepening relationship, what does that mean for me? What does that invite me to consider in my own life to somehow maybe alleviate suffering or to deepen my connection or maybe share some of this with other people in my own way? So it starts internally and then ends the program externally. How do we then bring this into the world? Because, like many other things, when we find something that really resonates with us, we often want to share it. And that's really the essence of eco spirituality moving into practice. So, in that sense, the practicum isn't necessarily a practicum per se. It's more about writing up some of this and reflecting on it so we see how we start to deepen into this experience. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you. Now I'm going to hit you guys until somebody puts more questions in the chat. I'm going to hit you with some practical questions because I do have a Capricorn in my triple Sagittarius chart. So tell us about books that might be required or other materials and the cost. Amy, you want to take that one? Or start?
Holly, you're gonna have to say the cost because numbers and I just kind of like do this.
Well, then I'll throw this out real quickly. It is $375 per quarter for 4 quarters. Okay.
Semester.
Uh,
Half a year per
yes,
half a year.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Amy has 4 sections in her curriculum, so forgive me. Yes. So it's 375 times 4, plus some of the other costs that you brought up, like having your own spiritual director.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a certain amount of a la carte going on there. So there's that fee that you pay to Cherry Hill, and then a book per semester. When my book is published, I will probably require it, but I will also be continue to provide chapters through Moodle. So it's your choice whether you want to deal with downloading electronic or get something you can hold on to. Um, the interviews, again, it's your choice whether you want to seek out someone who's willing to, out of the goodness of their heart, have an interview with you, or if you want to offer them a gift for their time. Um, Other costs that will come up, of course, is the supervisor who you'll be working with, and going on retreat. You may book yourself into a week-long meditation with a big name teacher, or you may grab your tent and go to the local wilderness, or you may do a backyard retreat. So, prices are certainly going to vary depending on what you put together for the requirements from there, which is why we don't have like a flat fee. But yeah, 1 book per semester for a deeper dive, an elective for a deeper dive, because 2 years is a gallop. We are unable to do sort of deep plowing into storytelling. 1 month for the practice of storytelling and listening for story,
Yeah.
if that gives you an idea, right? So you have the opportunity to sign up for an elective where you can do your own deeper dive of one thing that really connected for you, whether it's dream work or labyrinth walks or soul collage or writing as spiritual practice or whatever it is. And again, you find what it fits your budget to do that.
Okay.
Um,
And I'm going to interrupt because I realize
have I covered? Yeah, go ahead, Holly.
I messed up. It is 375 per quarter. That's the payment schedule, but there are 8 quarters in 2 years. So yeah, didn't mean to undercut us there.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, numbers.
Yeah, same here. I have to see them. Okay.
The way the course is structured is that there's 5 full months and then a month of integration. 5 full months and a month of integration. So we do that 4 times and then we graduate.
Mhm.
And what
And
else in terms of
your next group starts.
March, meeting the first full week and third full week of the month on Wednesday.
Okay.
At what time Eastern time, Scott? Tell me what time y'all meet. I'm in Portugal. I know when I'm showing up.
5 o'clock Eastern time.
Thank you. 5 o'clock Eastern.
5 to 6 1 week, 5 to 6:30 the next week, or flip
Other way
that.
around.
Flip that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Scott. And Scott and Jeffrey have both, Scott's currently in the program. Jeffrey's a graduate. So if you want to speak to a student, folks who can help fill
Great.
in some student eye view of the experience.
Okay. Jeffrey, you want to take a hint at this?
Sure. Give me a moment just to go and grab the 4 books. There are 4 texts that we're going to be focusing on or focusing around. They're really foundational texts. We don't, it's not like a book discussion group or anything, but they do give us some of the external framing into this. Braiding Sweetgrass, Robin Wall Kimmerer. The Wild Edge of Sorrow by Francis Weller. The Spell of the Sensuous by David Abram. And finally, Act of Hope, the revised version by Joanna Macy, who just passed away, and Chris Johnson. So, Johnstone, excuse me. So, those are the 4 texts that we have. Those are the syllabus will have a number of additional readings based on a number of different, like if you're looking at, eco theology, look at this, or if you're looking at animism, look at that, and if you're looking at some of these more dream work or what have you, there will be some additional, but these are the 4 required texts. There aren't any additional requirements. I want to say we only have a year, but it's kind of like, boy, does time just fly when you say you only have a year for these things, because it is just also, as Amy also suggested, it's really jam packed. We have 9 weeks of meeting, and then we're off for a week or 2, sometimes 3, depending on where it is in the year, and then we continue on. So we don't have large periods of time off. So there, I mean, I will be going on retreat. I already have 2 scheduled for next year. I'll certainly encourage people. Much of my own spirituality is around walking as a spiritual practice. So contemplative walking is really what I focus on. And I'll be using examples of that really throughout the program. But there won't be the requirement that you go far away. Now, if you want to go to do that with the Wanderers or a sit spot, you're more than welcome to do that. But I also know that not everybody can, for a variety of different reasons. So for our purposes, when we say that we want you to have a wander between now and the next time we meet or the small group meets, then it's up to you really where that feels right. Where do you feel called to do that? If you feel called to do that on a national hiking path, and you're gonna, great, do that. If you feel called to do that in your local park because that's what's local and possible for you, then by all means do that. What's important is that we actually get outside as much as possible, just because that's where we're really going to be able to connect with the natural world a little bit more than inside, where, my floor is wood. So there is something natural there, but it's a little different than walking outside and being close to a living tree.
Okay. And
for costs, we need to talk with Holly also. So
$375 per quarter, this time for 4 quarters. But Barry has a good question. How does the Ecospirituality program differ from the CMC? Is it different enough to justify the additional $1,800? And Barry, I have helped Jeffrey. I've really just kind of been the spiritual companion while he developed this. So I have not been through the Ecospirituality program because we're rewilding will just start this spring. But I've done a good bit of the reading. I helped create the community ministry certificate. So I can tell you from what I know that they're very different. It seems to me that both of these certificates, and one reason we're talking about them together tonight, is that they're very intensely personal, probably going to be transformative, going to involve a lot of introspection, reflection back and forth between you and your inner self, you and your world, you and people you trust around you. The community ministry certificate does a lot of that, but it also covers a wide range of subjects, much like you would get in a Master of Divinity, except not on a graduate level. There, as you know, because you earned yours, Barry, there are practical things like public speaking and developing a workshop, addictions and family systems and all kinds of things like that, and theology, pagan theology and history. Whereas both of these certificates are going to be probably wider ranging in the spiritualities they encompass. That's probably not an adequate way of putting it, but Amy and Jeffrey, please jump in.
One of the other things I could say about this, where the CMC is a lot more individual work.
Yes.
While there is a mentor, it's a lot more of the individual process. I could think just for my own personal education, that would have been great for me 20 years ago. That doesn't work for me any longer. I need to get together with a group of people, whether that's a small group with a guide or a mentor or some sort of a structured course. So in that sense, the anybody could go and read these 4 books, and if you go read the 4 books and kind of do some of the practices that they're suggesting, you're going to then understand a lot more of what I'm talking about. But how often do people go and just read the books and then do the practices on their own? And often they like to talk to other people about it. They like to process that kind of information, especially when it starts to bring us into sometimes vulnerable or emerging areas within ourselves where we don't necessarily have a frame of reference. We might have an old broken system that may have been saying, well, you need to do this or you need to do that. But somehow that just doesn't feel right for me right now. I need to talk about this a little bit, or I need to write about it. I need somebody to help me think through it. So that's one of the reasons why the Ecospirituality program not only has the class session and then the small group, the class session, small group, and that cycle. But it's a course, even though we're going to be recording it, it's not one that will be really readily available for somebody to take asynchronously, because there's just too much of that personal individual processing that needs to happen. So in that sense, it's really quite different from the CMC. Both of them, along with spiritual direction, we all want to see the world a better place. We want to see people more comfortable in themselves. But the approach that we take and the kind of subset of how we go about doing that is what really differs.
Mhm. You guys have been very quiet this evening, and maybe you didn't know what questions you had until you heard Jeffrey and Amy talk. But I wonder if you have comments or questions from your own experience, or want to bounce some thoughts off of them. No? You sure? Any parting thoughts, Amy and Jeffrey?
Well, I would like to just sort of ground down into the sort of the pillars of the spiritual direction program. It's based on this foundational belief that every person is whole, holy, and worthy. Spiritual direction work is about radical hospitality. It's also about loving accountability. It's about consent. And woven through is embodiment and creativity, the arts, our bodies, our lived experience. And there are folks who go through the program not to become someone who can hang up a shingle and say, hey, I am a professional this or that, but who want to transform themselves. And even semester 4, when we're talking about business stuff, the spirituality of money is powerful work and worth going through for your own personal formation, even if you're never going to have a pricing conversation with a client.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Any last thoughts, Jeffrey?
Sure. One thing that I do want to share is that eco-spirituality is highly based around a personal experience and kinship with elements of the natural world. And in that sense, eco-spirituality is very different from environmental conservation or forest management or any of those other things. And they're all wonderful, all wonderful. But there's a great difference between many of those things that seek to save the rainforest, because we're seeking to save something that's good in its of itself, and it has history and tradition and all of that, and that's all wonderful. But that's not a personal relationship with the trees. That's not a personal relationship with the water. That's not a personal relationship where we have a sense of kinship, which is what eco-spirituality is really all about. That's one of the things that separates eco-spirituality even from forest bathing, where you're there's a lot more of the science we engage in forest bathing, which I'm currently working on myself. We engage in forest bathing because we want to relax. We want to calm down. We want to live longer. We want to get some of the energies of the natural world into us. But that's very different. That's getting. That's still taking or managing. Eco-spirituality is connecting. It's all about connection and kinship. And in that, I mentioned this before, but a lot of this, once again, I'm talking about on a regular basis in this Substack platform. And I'm just sharing this once again because if after today you wake up tomorrow morning and it's like, oh, I should have asked that question. Or, oh, what about that? Write it down, right? Write it down so you don't forget. And then reach out to Amy or reach out to me about these programs because these are big commitments of time and resources that are also likely going to change how you perceive things by the end of it. Not because you're forced to, but because you're going to have those kinds of prompts and that kind of support to hold you along the way in a way that you don't traditionally in many traditional academic programs. That's not their purpose. So thanks, Holly.
I often tell people thanks that one difference in being in a seminary is we really do try to be a supportive family. Yeah. If you've not been watching it, there's a good bit of interesting information in the chat. Jeffrey and Amy both have posted book titles and a couple of links. If somehow you missed those, we are going to post this recording. But if you need to get in touch and you can't remember anything else, just send something to Cherry Hill. The main Cherry Hill address comes straight to me, so I'm happy to forward on anything that might be intended for one of them. And I want to thank each of you for being here. It's great to see some friends, some old friends. And we appreciate your time, Jeffrey and Amy. Thank you for the great work that you do.
Thanks for having us on, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you all very much. Take care of yourselves.
Good night.
Blessings.